Hello. As you may well know by now, my name is Christina Roberto, and I'm a real estate agent in North Central Ohio. And I talk about North Central Ohio a lot, and I kind of wanted to talk to you all today about a couple of things. One, what does North Central Ohio mean? Where is that? What do we have here? And number two, I also wanted to talk to you about some questions I've been getting from folks who are considering moving to our area. So I'm kind of go through a list of about 15 questions that I'm asked fairly regularly in my workday about, hey, if I move there, do you have this? Do you have that? So I'm going to go through those 15 questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Um, First of all, North Central Ohio it's not a specific geographic area that's kind of outlined that you can put in a box. So I'm going to give you my definition of North Central Ohio. I have lived here for 23 years now, and so this is the area that I work. I define it personally as if you're coming up from Columbus to the south, we're in between Columbus to the south and Cleveland to the northeast. I-71 runs from Columbus to Cleveland in Ohio, and we're about midway between the 2 points there. So for me, when I think of North Central Ohio, I start thinking about it if you're coming north out of Columbus, you kind of get into northern Morrow County, you're starting to get into North Central Ohio. So that would be sort of the southern border along there. So Galion, Mount Vernon, those places are certainly what I would consider North Central Ohio. And then to the north, you would go clear up into Medina County. So Medina is south of Cleveland, but it's the northern part of what I would term North Central Ohio. And then on the east, you would have Wooster, maybe a little east of that, maybe into Orville, and then along Route 30, all the way through and all the way over to Bucyrus. So that's my definition of North Central Ohio. We have a lot in there, okay, guys? It's not a small area. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot of wonderful towns and cities in there I encourage you, even if you already live in Ohio, you come up to our area and check some things out, okay? So for purposes of our discussion today, I'm going to be talking about 3 specific cities. One is Mansfield, so that would be to the west. Ashland is where I personally live. It's kind of right in the middle of all the things I just talked about. And then Wooster would be to the east. So I'm going to talk a lot about that whole, each of those places when we have our discussion today about when I'm answering some of these questions. So the first question, without any further ado, that I get when I have people who are looking to move here from out of state or other parts of our state, the first question that I get a lot of, what are the different types of communities in the area? Are they urban, suburban, or rural? My answer to that question is yes. We have all of it. So we have some urban areas around Mansfield. Mansfield, I would consider an urban area. It's a small urban area, but it is nevertheless an urban area. And then suburban, I would term Ashland and Worcester more of a suburban area, even though they aren't traditional suburbs to a larger community such as Columbus or Cleveland, right? They're not really close enough to those 2 cities to be called the suburbs of them. But I would say that it's a very suburban vibe and feel in both of those 2 places. And then, of course, we have rural. Everything in between is farmland and rural homesteads, those kinds of things. We do have a very large Amish population in this area. One of, if not the largest in the nation. So we have a lot of that kind of rural stuff going on as well. So we've got it all here, which is really nice. One of the things that I like about where we live is I can have a different feel no matter where I'm at in our area, okay? So it's really, really nice from that standpoint. Number 2, how close are daily essentials like grocery stores, healthcare, and retail? So again, that depends where you're at, right? So if you're right in Ashland or right in Mansfield or right in Wooster or Galion or any of those spots, you're going to have everything you need for your daily needs. There's some great grocery stores. There's Target, Walmart, those kinds of places in there. So everything that you need for your daily living you're going to be able to find really quickly if you're living in those towns specifically. Now, if you're in between them, you might have a little bit of a drive, but I suspect that most people who decide to, who opt for a rural setting that they live in, are probably in understanding of the fact that they're not going to also have a really nice high-end grocery store 5 minutes away from them. They're going to have to drive a little bit for that. So maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. So the answer is yes, we have everything that you would want or need. We're not so rural that you're like, oh my gosh, I can only go to the grocery store once a week, right? You can go every day if you want, but it just might not be like 5 minutes from your house if you're in a rural area. Number 3, what's the average price range for homes in Mansfield, Ashland, and Wooster? So I just looked these up this morning. They do fluctuate a little bit. So I wanted to give you guys the latest, greatest information on that. So for Mansfield, according to the research I did this morning, your average price of a home would be $150,000 to $190,000. You can always buy something for less that needs a lot of work, and you can certainly buy things that are much more expensive than that. But your median sale price for most people living in this area is $150,000 to $190,000 in Mansfield. In Ashland, it's a little bit higher, so it's about $200,000 to $240,000 for just like your normal 3-bedroom, 4-bath house, or I'm sorry, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, or maybe a 4-bedroom house. Not sitting on much land. That would be kind of an in-town where you're not sitting on a bunch of land. If you stick that same house, obviously, out in a rural area and you've got more like 5 or 10 acres, that price is going to go up, obviously. And then Wooster, a little bit higher than Ashland, $250,000 to $300,000. You can expect to pay as the median home sale price in that area. Again, dependent upon how much acreage you have, that can get higher or lower, those kinds of things. Number 4, what's the overall housing inventory like right now? Is it a buyer's or a seller's market? So we are still working in predominantly a seller's market in our area. We still are tight on inventory. We don't have a ton of extra inventory. We have a lot of buyers in the market still. So for that reason, we still have a bit of a seller's market. Now, is seller market-y as it was back in 2022, 23? No. So you are still able to, as a seller, kind of be a little picky about the buyer that you choose, but not always. So that's going to come down to pricing of your home. If you have your home priced appropriately, you can expect to get probably an offer pretty quickly. You can expect that maybe depending on how clean the house is, and by clean I literally mean like not much for a buyer to do once they get in there, and it's priced appropriately, decorated nicely, maybe updated, those you're still going to see some multiple offers on. So it's still very much a seller's market here, but not quite as crazy of a seller's market as it was a couple of years ago. So if you're looking to sell, you want to keep that in mind when you're pricing your home with your real estate agent. I always bring data with me to discuss that. You'll know exactly what my thoughts are and why. And then from a buyer perspective, if you need to get into someplace quickly, you're going to need to be writing really strong, clean offers. Okay. Number 5, how long are homes typically staying on the market in the region? So right now, according again to some of the research I did this morning, around 15 to 35 days if the home is priced appropriately. Now, with that said, it has been very cold, so we've had some homes sitting a little longer because it's been so cold that people, I think, just weren't ready to pull the ripcord on putting an offer in and buying a home, and that's okay. So it slowed down a little bit. So maybe right now, maybe we're pushing 45 days on some houses. Again, a house that has been sitting for 2 or 3 months in our market is clearly overpriced for what is going on, either going on with the home or the size of the home or the location of the home. If they're priced right, they're still moving pretty quickly. Number 6, are there newer subdivisions or areas with more recent construction? The answer is yes and no. So because we are not in a major metropolitan area where we're like in a suburb of, say, Columbus, like Dublin or something, where there's new subdivisions going in all the time. We're not quite so close to there. So there might be a subdivision or two around, but mostly people buy land, like a lot, on their own, either maybe half acre, all the way up to 5, 10, 15 acres, and then they have their home built on it. So with that said, you're not going to easily find a home that's in a subdivision where the houses have already been put up or they're in the process of being put up first. And then you can kind of pick from all the different floor plans or whatever, or you pick your lot out and that builder that's doing that subdivision lets you put, make the finishing touches to your home. We don't have as much of that going on, but we do have a slew of builders right in the area that are not necessarily custom builders. They're going to be like those subdivision builders where you can pick from different floor plans and those kinds of things, but you are putting it on your lot. So it's a little bit different. So yes, we have lots of new builds because people will come in and buy land and then they'll hire one of those folks to go in and build a house for them. But it's not necessarily like your traditional thought of a subdivision in, like I said, like Columbus or Cleveland. So we're going to talk about property taxes. But before I do that, I want to talk about where we're located more specifically. Okay. So I used to, before I was a real estate agent, used to work up in Cleveland. So I would say that Ashland, Wooster are kind of bedroom communities a little bit. And what I mean by that is I had an employer who did not require that I come to work every single day in the office. So I would drive to work once or twice a week up in Cleveland. And to give you an example, I do live in Ashland. And I can get on 71 and go straight up into Cleveland, and I could be from work door to door. My travel during rush hour is 50 minutes. And I worked all the way downtown in Cleveland. I worked right next to Progressive Field where the Guardians play. So that kind of gives you an idea. Now for Columbus, it takes me about an hour. So my parents live in Dublin, so it takes me about an hour and 15 minutes or so to get to their house in Dublin, but I can be in Polaris area or Easton and right on an hour. Mansfield is a little farther south on 71 than Ashland is, so it's kind of reversed for the folks in Mansfield. They're probably 50 minutes from Columbus and an hour 10 maybe from Cleveland. So it's just something to think about there. Wooster is kind of like Ashland. It takes about the same to get to Cleveland or Columbus as it does from Ashland. So that just kind of gives you an idea. It's fantastic because we're an hour from Columbus, we're an hour from Cleveland, we're about 45 minutes from Akron. I can be in Pittsburgh in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I can be in Detroit in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I can be in Chicago in 4. These are all car ride times. So we in Cincinnati, probably 2.5 hours for Cincinnati, depending on which side of it you're going. So I got to tell you, like, these are day trips for me. So there are times where I will go. I've done it before where I have gone up to Cleveland and maybe caught a Thursday night or a Friday night Cavaliers game, professional basketball, and then I'll go home. And then the next day I was going to a hockey game in Columbus with the NHL. So just something to think about. We have a lot of professional sports in Ohio, especially in Columbus and Cleveland. And then, of course, Ohio State's there. We have some great universities as well. Wonderful shopping in both of those places, wonderful restaurants in both of those places. So really take advantage of that is something I really enjoy doing, especially when the weather's a little nicer. So getting back into it, we're going to talk property taxes. Woohoo! So what I'll also tell you before I get into this is that we live in a very affordable area within Ohio. The Midwest is pretty affordable to start with. Ohio's fairly affordable if you look at it in comparison to Florida, New York, the coast out west. It's remained very affordable, and I'm really happy about that. And it is reflected in our property taxes as well. But our property taxes in North Central Ohio are way better than Columbus or Cleveland in some of their suburbs. So these numbers I'm about to give you are not 100%, right? Like your municipality that you purchase your home in will be, assessing what your taxes are. So this is a range and kind of an idea, and an idea built around the median sales price of the homes in these areas, okay? So if you buy a house that's $750,000, these taxes are not going to apply because I'm talking about kind of the median tax range. But it'll give you an idea. So for Richland County, their effective tax rate is about 1.6%. And what that translates to into yearly taxes is somewhere, again, for the median home price sold in Richland County, that's going to translate to about $1,800 to $2,100 a year in actual taxes, property taxes. In Ashland, a little bit more of a spread there. 1.2% to 1.5% is the effective tax rate. And that translates in Ashland, if you buy something that's kind of around the median sales price, to $1,500 to $1,900 per year in property taxes. Wayne County, their 1.3% to 1.8% is their effective tax rate. And then with their median sales price being a little higher, that translates to about $2,300 to $2,700 a year in taxes. Again, you cannot quote me on this. This is not what the taxes on your specific home will be. That will be assigned and assessed by the county and the municipality that you purchase the home in. And before you buy a home, if you're using me as your agent, I'm certainly going to be showing you what the current taxes are on the home you're buying. They will change once you buy the house a little bit, because typically you're buying a house that it costs more when they sold it or when they're selling it than when they bought it. So that will change your tax rate some, but not generally too terribly much. But you shouldn't go in 100% blind. We might not be able to quote you the exact amount, but you will have a very good understanding of what your expected property tax bill will be. Number 8, what types of employers are common in the area? So we have farms. They employ a lot of people. We have, there's some factories, some manufacturing, there's some opportunities there. There's also healthcare opportunities. And, while we're on the subject of healthcare, let me just say that at Mansfield, Ashland, and Wooster each has their own hospital. And they are affiliated with hospital systems elsewhere in the state. So the hospital system in Wooster is affiliated with the Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland. Ashland's is affiliated with University Healthcare, also in Cleveland, but we also have we have a second hospital in Ashland that's affiliated with Ohio Health out of Columbus. And then Mansfield is Ohio Health affiliate out of Columbus, and they have another hospital that's run by a company called Avita. So we have lots of options there. We also have higher education, so we have a lot of campuses around. In Mansfield, there's several campuses. In Ashland, we have a campus or two, and also in Wooster. So you have some higher education opportunity jobs. But again, healthcare, manufacturing, those kinds of things are pretty common around here. And then some people, like I did, use our area as a bedroom community. So I was working for a corporation up in Cleveland, and I was making that drive a couple of times a week. So you don't have to work necessarily right where you live here. You can certainly work in Columbus, Cleveland, or Akron, and make that commute if you'd like. Traffic it's almost non-existent here. So when I give you, it takes this long to get to a place or whatever, that's pretty standard almost all of the time. Number 9, what's the commute like to larger cities like Columbus or Cleveland? So we talked about this a little bit. We're going to talk about it some more. Like I said, you're about an hour, depending where you're at in this area that we're talking about, you're about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes away from downtown Columbus. You could be at Polaris a little quicker, which is the north side of Columbus. You could probably be there in an hour. And then Cleveland, same thing, depending on where you're at, hour to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on where you're at versus where you're heading to in Cleveland. And so when I'm having these conversations, I'm kind of talking about getting downtown, just so that everybody knows. Akron, you're about 45 minutes away. So lots to do in Akron as well. So that's not a very far commute. If you work in Akron, you could live here and you could make that commute as well. And again, not a lot of traffic. There'll be some Columbus traffic around work hours. There will be some in Cleveland around work hours. I will say that the traffic in Cleveland is not as bad as it is in Columbus. That's my anecdotal experience. I find it that I wait less in traffic in Cleveland than I do in Columbus. But as far as around here in North Central Ohio, the area that we're talking about, there's almost zero traffic ever. So I have turned into someone who gets frustrated at traffic when I didn't used to be, because I grew up in Columbus and I was very used to it. And but now I'm frustrated by it because I don't typically have to deal with it. So number 9, what's the commute like to larger? Oh, I'm sorry, I just did that one. Number 10, are there parks, trails, or outdoor recreation nearby? The answer is yes. We have a ton of that stuff around here. We have, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, we have Mohican State Park, which is in Ashland County, very close to Richland County though. It's a beautiful state park. There's lots of canoeing and there's camping, hiking. There are bike trails, there's horse trails, there's side-by-side trails. There's all kinds of things there, but that's just one small part of the park system. That is part of the state park system, like I said. And then in Ashland, we have and Richland and in Wayne County, which is where Wooster is located, we certainly have county park systems, and all of them are just fabulously maintained. You can go hiking. You can, it doesn't matter what time of year. It's great, honestly. And then if you really like to fish, we have some great fishing opportunities here. There's some great lakes are in the area that you can go and fish at. And while we're speaking about lakes, we are not very far from Lake Erie, so we can be up at Lake Erie in an hour or less. So we can go all the way, we can go up to Sandusky. We could I'll catch a ferry and I'll go out to the islands for the day. And there's just so much to do right around where we live. So in the winter, we have snow trails, which is a ski area. It's a great little ski area. So we have all kinds of things to do year round here as far as the outdoors is concerned. And you can get fresh air and peace and quiet, free of traffic. It's very nice. I can't say enough about it, as you can tell. Number 11, what is the seasonal weather like? And are there things to consider when maintaining a home here? So the answer is yes, there are some things to consider. If you are moving from a state or an area where it's very warm all the time, we definitely have 4 seasons here. There's definitely spring, summer, fall, winter, and they're very delineated for the most part. So if you purchase a home here and you are coming from out of state, I would say any of the really warm states out west, Arizona, New Mexico, even California, it gets cold here in the winter. So if you move from a state like that, or maybe even Florida, you may find that your first December, January, February are shocking because they can be pretty cold. So with that said, when you own a home in an area like this, that would be very different if you're moving from a very warm place that's kind of warm throughout the year. There are some things that you're going to want to understand how to take care of with your home as the weather gets colder. And that's something that your real estate agent can help you with, or your neighbors, or any of the contractors that we could put you in contact with. So let's talk about the seasons a little bit. So spring for us is generally cool, starting to get warm, and we can sometimes have a longer spring. Sometimes it feels like spring is 2 days and it goes from like cold to hot, but most of the time we have a decent spring. And I always call that jeans and sweatshirt weather, and I don't have to wear a jacket and I can throw a pair of boots on, and I love spring. All the leaves are coming back out on the trees. We do get quite a bit of pollen because of that. So if you suffer from allergies, you may want to make sure you're taking your allergy meds in the spring. And then summer it can be very warm here. So summer, I would say you're between 75, 80 degrees, and it can get up into the 90s. In July, August, it can get pretty hot. Now, that's relative. Obviously, if you live in Arizona, if somebody tells you it's 90 degrees, 92 degrees, you're going to be like, that's nothing. So, but it does get relatively warm here in the summer, and we can get a bit humid. I'm not talking Florida in August humid, right? But we do have a little humidity in the air. So it's not necessarily something that I would say is miserable by any means, but just know that as the summer goes on, the humidity will start to pick up. In the fall, you're back to sweater and jeans weather again. So we have beautiful, beautiful falls here in North Central Ohio. Our topography is more rolling hills. So think kind of New England. I lived in Boston for several years, and I can tell you from experience of living in both places that when our leaves turn here in North Central Ohio, it is truly a sight to see. And it is very reminiscent of a New England fall. So we have beautiful colors, beautiful vistas. You can drive out to some of the county roads and kind of get up on top of a hill and just see as far as the eye can see. There'll be beautiful colors everywhere. So it's definitely something that I enjoy about living here, and I think that most people enjoy when they move here, even if they move from a different state. And then winter can be very cold. We typically start getting cold around late November, December. We might be in the 30s, 40s through most of that. And then once we kind of skip into January, again, I'm talking about the weather here, so don't take me, don't be mad if my dates are off, because they're going to be. January, February tend to be the coldest. We will get very cold here. We can get down into the single digits. It's been a very cold winter for us this year, so it's been single digits for most of January. But it's really that super cold snap that we have every year, usually lasts maybe 2-3 weeks, and then you're kind of back into the 30s, 40s again. So nothing to fear terribly, but we definitely, again, have 4 distinct seasons, which is one of the things that I love about living in Ohio, and specifically in our area, because we do still get a decent amount of snow. So there are parts of Ohio, especially down south, where it gets cold, but they don't really get a lot of snow. And to me, if it's going to be cold, I want to see white stuff on the ground. So that's how I look at it. So just something to consider if you're moving to our area. Number 12, are there local options for higher education or technical training? Yes, we talked about that a little bit, but I'm going to dive into it just a little more now. So I'm going to start at Mansfield. There is an Ohio State branch, a very large branch of Ohio State's campus in Mansfield, and there's also North Central State College, and there's a nursing school over there as well. So there's lots of higher education opportunities in Richland County, which is where Mansfield is located. In Ashland and Ashland County, we have Ashland University here. I believe there's also somewhere between here and Mansfield a branch of the University of Akron as well. So you could attend there if you wanted to. But Ashland is a really nice Division II university with a really great track and field program. So go Eagles. And also women's basketball is very, very good program at Ashland University. And then in Wayne County, where Wooster is located, there's the College of Wooster. And then Ohio State has another very large branch campus there called ATI, which is the Agricultural Technical Institute. And that is where most of their agricultural majors reside. Okay, so you have a lot of that as well here. So you have lots of higher learning opportunities and lots of ways to educate yourself in our tech schools for like the kids that are in high school, and they, instead of going all the way straight through at the regular high school, they'll go to the technical high school. Those are fantastic programs too. I mean, we just have some really great opportunities there for our kids that they can come out already ready and prepped for a career in all kinds of different things. Number 13, are short-term rentals or investment properties common in this market? So yes and no. If you're in the rural areas, not so much, right? There's not a bunch of apartment complexes out kind of in the middle of a farm field, right? Or out on some county road. There are rental homes out there, but there aren't as many of them as there are in town. So in Ashland, Mansfield, and Wooster in town, yes, there's plenty of rentals. There is also a decent short-term rental market around Mohican State Forest and within each of those cities that I just named. So a lot of people, I myself own an Airbnb in the Loudonville area, which is right by Mohican State Forest. And people come in the summer and they rent it for the weekend and they float down the river on their rafts, or they go hiking or biking or whatever. So we have a lot going on as far as that's concerned. Number 14, how walkable or bike friendly are the downtown areas? I would say that our downtown areas and these three specific places that I'm talking about are very walkable and very bikeable. So Ashland has a beautiful little downtown. I live maybe 3/4 of a mile away from downtown. I can walk down there, or I can ride my bike over there, or I can drive there and park my car and walk up and down. It's a very safe place to be. Little shops, restaurants, breweries, those kinds of things. There's a lot going on downtown, and it's a lot of fun to do on foot. Same with Mansfield. Mansfield has a beautiful downtown. It's under construction right now, so I'll give you that caveat. They're trying to make it more beautiful, but it's going to be a couple years. It's a little torn up down there right now, but when it's done, it's going to be fantastic, and that's also a very walkable city to be in. And then Worcester, same thing as Ashland, just a beautiful downtown. The Christmas lights in Worcester are always pretty phenomenal too. They have some wonderful restaurants, shops, those kinds of things. They have a great steakhouse over there. So just all kinds of things that I highly encourage anybody that lives here, even if you don't live in one of the places that I just mentioned, take a Saturday and park your car and walk around and see what you can get into, because there is a lot going on. And number 15, can you recommend trusted local professionals like lenders, inspectors, or contractors? Of course I can. I've been doing this a long time. I've been here for 23 years, and I have a pretty good list of all those people. So when I have people relocate and they use me to purchase their home, I definitely have a conversation with them right around closing time, and I give them a list of all the folks that I recommend. Those recommendations come not necessarily from the fact that I've used them personally, although I have many of them. They're also people that other folks that I know have used, or other clients I know have used. So it's definitely something that I can help you with as your real estate agent. So just one more before I close. Just one more kind of love letter to the area that I live in. I grew up in Columbus, like I said. I lived in Boston. I lived in Cincinnati. When I moved here 23 years ago, I thought, oh my gosh, it's kind of like I'm not close to anything, because I was very used to being in an urban area. And I have to tell you, I have grown to love this place. I don't really ever want to leave, because it's so nice that I can be in Columbus in an hour. I can watch a professional sporting event in Cleveland. I can, if I want to go watch a Steelers game in Pittsburgh, I can go there. Detroit's a lot of fun. I can be in Windsor, Ontario, Canada for all of their gambling and that kind of fun stuff in a couple of hours as well. So I love being kind of in the middle of all of these things, but then also being able to go home to peace and quiet and no traffic. So just something else to consider if you are considering living here. Feel free to message me, put something in the comments. My contact information is going to be in the description. And if you want to just have a conversation about what it's like to live here from a real estate perspective, if you're really considering making a move, feel free to drop me a line and I'll be happy to help.